we can recognize that we're at the precipice, a point in history where we can all see the cycle changing. Where we go from here is up to us. So let's start the conversation, and welcome to the show.
And I do welcome everybody on the planet, wherever you are. This beautiful blue circling marble spinning through the heavens. Enjoy your breath. Another day of existence to, move through the matrix, move through this thing that is our existence, our creation, our individual creations. So as we move through, when you look at the world, there's many ways to look at the chaos happening. You can look at it in a chaotic form like, oh, poor me, or you can say, I'm going to create something different and take this lump of shite and reform it into a sculpture that would be worthy of the Louvre in Paris. Your choice, your mind. So we're looking at gold prices getting up to record highs yet again. I was looking at Polymarket, and their price, $3,000 for February, is getting up right around 75, almost 80% of people believing that it'll get up in there. So Polymarket's a very good way to see trends or things that might occur, and the possibility of it occurring, especially when you got millions of dollars in bets coming in that gold will reach 3,000 by the end of the month. Wanted to talk about the percentage on the ratios today, not financial advice, but possibilities of gold. If it was 90 to 1, when it comes down to 20 to 1, what happens with silver pricing? And the gold is, so far I have some numbers for you, 2,000 tons has returned to the United States. The whole thing about the audit at the Fort Knox area, is it going to be true or not true? Because I sent the slide through social media as well as through the Patreon group there. Many different ways that you could fake an audit if it were to be faked. Or if they let the information come out that America didn't have the gold, that would crash the US dollar almost instantly. It wouldn't be wanted around the planet. So we got two possible scenarios here, possibly three. The gold's there, the audit could be faked, or they're going to let it roll. And they do want it to crash on purpose. So, there's a huge amount of variables moving through. Food prices are up again. Crypto's up again. And the story about the pennies, the melt value of a penny is now 3 cents. So on the pre-1981 or 1981 and older pennies, if you can find those pure copper pennies and sift those out from the zinc alloyed pennies that we have, if you can find those pre-1981 pennies, 3 cents in melt value, that is a way that you can get base materials that are already out here, have the people do all the sorting for you. And it's kind of like, the aluminum can collectors would go, get all the aluminum cans, squeeze them down, and then sell them to a wholesaler. Well, the same thing, if you go through mountains and billions of pennies and have the public do it and give them a 3X, somebody's going to do that. If they have the time to sit around all day. Imagine if you're making zero money and you have $25 to go to the bank and get a box of pennies, all in the rolls still, and just break open each roll, and all you do is sit there all day long, pre-1981. So you might find a couple wheat pennies, save those are a little more valuable. But then at the end of the day, what do you got, 50 pounds of copper? At $3, $4 a pound, you made $150 a day sifting through pennies. Because when you make them not part of the legal tender any longer, you can melt them down. You're no longer breaking federal law. This gets into a whole thing of, there's going to be millionaires made sifting through pennies coming up right now. So, Ransom, I'm glad you're here today. A lot to talk about, many possibilities, and just strangeness. Gets stranger by the minute, stranger by the hour. But since we're strangers and being strange late night, let's get it on.
Yeah, who would have thought those
Jim
pennies
Morrison
would have came back in fashion? The pennies. It's funny because a couple of years ago, I got rid of all the pennies I had. We had boxes of old pennies, and they just kept sitting there collecting dust. What a bad decision. Should have waited just a little while longer, and would have had an extra 30, 40 bucks.
Hey, didn't you tell me, also, Rance, but didn't you tell me out in the desert that there was a bunch of scrap metal there, and then there's no more scrap metal because people went out and picked up? Can you explain that story?
Yeah, absolutely. This whole area was a railroad and military industrial complex valley, and they used to just throw the excess things right off where they left it. Or if it was broke, they'd just leave it. There was iron all the way back into like the days of wagons and stuff. You could find like axles and junk like that. But Tweaker Bob and the gang, they stripped the desert. They got every little piece of recyclable goods over the past 10 or 15 years, and they've actually done a great environmental service by cleaning up the desert there. Now, if we could get them to go out and pick up all those Walmart and Dollar General bags that are hanging in the trees and rolling around like tumbleweeds in the desert, then we'd be, that would be a great help to society there. But the problem is there's no money in recycled bags. Even though
I was down in Zimbabwe. I was down in Zimbabwe many years ago, and in South Africa too. This is like mid 1990s, right after Mandela was elected. So it was real hopeful. It was very safe to travel, very low crime, and everybody had just turned a new leaf. And it was just such the hopeful time after Mandela got elected. So the couple of years in between there of extreme hope, that's the period I was traveling there. 10 Zimbabwe dollar to $1 exchange rate. So think about that. It's 10 Zim to $1. That's long gone. But anyway, I'll never forget on a bus, there'd been a high windstorm, and along this farming area, the plastic bags got blown into the fence. And all you could see, this fence coming across it over the hill. I was like, damn, why that fence is pretty interesting. I never saw one like that. The only reason is because so many bags got blown into it and wrapped on the wire that it was like the plastic bag had almost created like a fishnet and captured all the plastic bags. The reason I tell you that is even back then in Zimbabwe, they already were having a problem with the plastic pollution from the bags. So they'd have people go up and collect them all, and then they would melt them down, and a very rough, very pollutive process. They would just take compressed trash bags, any kind of bag, different colors, didn't matter, inks, dyes, and they would just melt it down, and then they made these like long bricks, and they were making park benches out of that stuff. Although it was rough and rudimentary, and you could see all the color swirls in it, there was no kind of filtration or anything. It was as rough as you could get to transform that plastic into like a flat board to be able to make park benches out of. And that was my first time thinking, well, maybe we could do something with those plastic bags, but that's not so much now.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was I was very impressed, incredibly impressed.
You could actually use those for emergency fire starting too. If you're a wet area and you don't have really nothing to get going, you just light one of those Walmart bags on fire and you're going to have a good little fire. I was looking at this thing that it kind of.
Oh, wait, a ransom also for emergency medical. Those bags too can be turned into emergency tourniquets for smaller parts of your body. If you wrap those up, and you can definitely make ropage and cordage out of them by twisting them. There's a huge amount of things you can do with a plastic bag in an emergency. You can carry water in it. You can do all kind of stuff. Use it for going to the bathroom so you don't want to contaminate your area. Just a plastic bag could be our friend too.
Yeah, it sure is. I wanted to show you this article. It kind of fits into the era that we're in and the changeover of how we're going to be doing monetary transactions. Because this is like the at least third one I've seen that's kind of like this. So this is masked robbers point at guard in a bold ATM heist. And if you watch the video, it's a really smooth transaction. And this is in Tennessee. This is over by where you live. So they just pull up. They catch the guy slipping while he has everything open and just take off with all the little drawers. Isn't that nice? But it's one of those reasons that you might hear from congressmen and senators in the near future telling you, we can't keep the paper money. It's too dangerous. It's too dirty. It's too dangerous. And organized crime can still use it. So we're going to have to go over to something that's more safe, more secure, and we already know what that is. And it's funny, we're banning the CBDC or whatever it's called. I forget the acronym for the centralized digital currency, but we're just going to use a different one. We're just not going to call it that, but we're still going to do it. We might do several versions of it. And this whole thing about the gold, if you just do a cursory search of the headlines, everything
Oh, there's so
says,
many. Everything's like gold. Like at least
yeah,
a third of the articles coming out are about gold now.
right. And depression and recession and
I got one of
inflation.
those articles.
And I wanted to show you this. So we were joking a few weeks ago about the black market of eggs. And now the border is cracking down on people smuggling not narcotics, not people, not any kind of really elusive anything, but eggs because they're cheaper in Mexico, a lot cheaper. And the reason for that is they're saying they're worried about the bird flu despite the fact that there are no shortage of eggs except for the ones that they're destroying or the chickens that they're destroying that is causing the egg shortages in the areas that there are. But everywhere else, all the people with chickens, which is generally everywhere else except for civilized people in the city, are growing their own eggs. They have eggs. This lady downtown, I just saw in the newspaper, they came and they stole 4 of her chickens because she had too many chickens on the outskirts of town. She wasn't actually in the city limits, but I guess there was some kind of ordinance that she bordered the city limits, so she could only have 1 chicken and not 5 chickens. So they came and they took her chickens. There's chicken thieves out there, egg smuggling. This is a time to live in. I mean, things are very interesting. Which came first, the chicken die off or the eggs going missing? I don't know. It's a conundrum we'll never figure out.
Yeah, government way overstepping their bounds. When you come to people's food production, okay, it's doable now. There's some law enforcement and there's some backup behind them because they're targeting one person. And we're really not that hungry yet. But if it comes down into a Great Depression style era and the revenuers were going to come and try to steal something from you, that would be the last day they would say goodbye to their families. It's going to come to that. You know, people, if you're going to steal their food and their production of food in a very, let's say, downturning time, borderline Great Depression plus, then they're not going to allow you to take the food. There's going to be constant battles between authorities and those that want to be left alone and have their own food production. Like for me, if like right now, if some authorities were going to come in and tear up my, let's say 1 acre plot of tobacco because, well, you don't have the proper license, you're only allowed to do half an acre, and somebody with LiDAR actually measured it and said, yeah, it's more than an acre, you got to go tear down the whole thing. Well, I thought it was allowed half an acre, but you're tried to come in. I think people would actually, you never heard that term tarred and feathered. That's a real thing. But a lot of you would get very, very, very sick when they did that to you because A, the poison that would go in from the tar all over your skin, and B, then you're not able to breathe it through your skin, so you're getting double health problems with that. And then you have to use kerosene or something to get the tar off of you. So tarring and feathering was a very real thing, where they would cover somebody in tar and then put chicken feathers all over them as a message, a funny one, to others, because then they would be kicking them down the road, literally like kicking them in their back and on their butt and stuff. And these people are on gravel roads getting run out of town all covered in feathers and tar, like, don't you come back. We'll do the same thing to you again and everybody you bring back. You're going to have to bring 100 army guys before you're going to come and get our food. Like, it's coming to that. Yeah. Tar and feathering again. Make tar and feathering great again.
That's biological assault. You might give them bird flu or something.
No, man. I'm just kidding. Yeah, can I add on to the bird flu thing? I've been traveling out here in Asia, and when I originally came out here for Lunar New Year, I flew through Istanbul, and then I flew into Taipei, and then I was down in southern Taiwan, and we went up to Japan, so I went through another airport there, went up into Tokyo, and then back from Tokyo back to Taipei, and also my friends had just come back from Bangkok and Kuala Lumpur and Singapore. There's any kind of restrictions or mask wearing or mask mandates or anything out here in Asia related to bird flu at all. Zero. We are being played so hard with this bird flu thing, because if it was a real deal, everywhere of these countries that have gotten really bad, with the COVID, they would have been the first ones to lock everything down. But I'm not seeing that any way, shape, or form. When I say zero, I mean zero. They're not requiring you to wear masks anywhere in any airport or anything. So that's all a bunch of BS. Your bird flu is BS. So you're being played in the news about the severity of it, the possible whatever jumping from turtles to frogs to people back to ostriches or something. I don't know. Eventually it'll jump to T-Rex and then maybe just Triceratops, and then it'll jump back to people again or something. That's the way they're spinning it in the news, but I'm absolutely telling you, we are being played. There is nothing happening out here in Asia, and this would be the first place that would lock it down, or at least require masks through the airports at the bare minimum. But that is not happening here. So take your news with a grain of crushed egg dust, I guess.
I like my eggs with salt, though. A little grain of salt on there. No, it's funny to me, and kind of the reason I brought up the eggs confiscation and linked it to the people robbing the ATM is, at what point, in the future, will people be doing crimes to get food in that style? And I know a lot of people think we're going into the golden era, but like I was saying last week, and it looks like all the mainstream media around the world agrees with me, in order for us to go into a golden era, we have to rip the Band-Aid off and let some of the bubbles pop. And some of those bubbles are completely artificial bubbles. We're starting to find out, the trillions and trillions, the endless theft of the American taxpayer. I mean, no other citizenry, I think, ever in the world has allowed their government to take so much, despite being a country founded on saying, no, we don't want to pay that much taxes. We don't like your taxes. Okay, well, we'll just fast forward to the future where 40% of your income is taxed, and everything that you do, purchase, sell, have, buy, if you die, whatever, there's just a tax in some form on that action. And I was going to skirt through the headlines through here and show people every sign is that we're going to have a short recession, if not maybe a little longer recession. Or I guess the question is, are you able to take the hit for a short time? Are you able to maintain? Are you going to lose your property? Are you going to lose your wealth trying to stay afloat? And I don't think that you have to, because it won't be so severe for people that see it coming, and they're not really hiding that it's coming. So, and I wanted to point out too, here in a minute, I kept thinking about all of these plane crashes, just everywhere. There's plane crashes, right? Little planes, big planes, everything fall into the ground one way or another. And I remember I kept thinking, didn't we cover this and kind of predict this a couple years ago? So I went back. I couldn't find the Skype message that I sent you, but I did find the show notes in my email of when we were talking about it. And it was an exact prediction of the future of planes falling apart because of lack of maintenance, of building things not up to par, the inspectors not really inspecting. I mean, this was happening. This was like mass chaos in the airline industry. And then we skipped 2 years in the future. We were right. I mean, things started falling out of the planes, out of the sky. And some of it, not all of it, was due to parts just breaking or malfunctions. You can put a lot to human error, but it all leads to the future where we talk about all the time. AI is going to be running everything. Matter of fact, it's running everything now, and it's starting to be annoying almost. So you can get on your phone and you can look for something that happened, or a headline that you remember, and you're going to get an AI interpretation of what you're looking for. And it's not even factually correct. It's wrong most of the time. And they're just rolling with it. They're not correcting it. They're not doing anything. So is AI actually making us dumber? I mean, all around. Not just cognitive thinking skills, but our whole perception of reality when it comes to AI writing articles, AI pushing those articles, finding out what your fears are, and then pushing those articles on you. And I know you've talked about that the more you interact with the internet, the more it's tailored to you. And that's happening in all arenas, like whether you're a game player, you watch TV, maybe you're just on your phone a lot, or you're a PC person. No matter which avenue you're connecting, they're tailoring it to warp your personal reality, like just for you. It's leaving out things, it's only showing you things. So, like, say if you were worried about the price of eggs, you're only going to get egg related sales pitches and egg related stories. It's really weird because I started researching this asteroid 2024 YR4 or whatever it is, and then like all of the news feeds on separate browsers I keep just for this specific reason, so that it's logged in with different topics and different stuff. They start pushing you everything there is to know about something, so you can, in a way, become an anecdotal expert at anything because the AI told you. But then you got to remember the AI is wrong a lot, and it's also authoring the stories that you're reading, the articles and things. So where do we go if you can't literally believe anything you read, little of what you see, almost nothing you hear, especially over the internet? It could be, it couldn't be. I mean, we've played with the AI in just, a minor way. And now I'm looking out there and I'm seeing videos that it is really hard, even for somebody that's played with it and is looking for certain things, to tell if that's a real thing. And now we're coming up to this idea, like I said last week, they're about to push the extraterrestrial idea on us. And I don't think they're going to give any proof. They're just going to push and push until there's a mass hysteria about the idea. So they successfully implanted it into the culture, or the pop culture of humans since 1947. Now we're gonna incorporate that fear in a real way by just not acknowledging at which point we are technologically. And it really doesn't matter if they found it, invented it, what have you. We're at the next level of technology, and just like on that Matrix movie, except for being in Baghdad, the cradle of civilization, Trump literally designated the U.S. as 01. So we are going to be going in a direction that is robotic, cryptocurrency, and algorithms, just nothing but algorithms deciding everything, AI. And, while you respond to that, I wanted to show a couple of articles about not only the doom and gloom about the pending recession due to inflation, but is AI making us dumb? I mean, literally all around.
Yeah, that's 01. That's a designation for zone 1 out of the 10 kingdoms. So, and it also could be year 1 of the new world that we're moving into. So there's a lot of symbolism in that 01. And then 2% is what we fought the Revolutionary War for, 2% tax on the tea. And only 3% of the population, 3 to 4% of the population, took part in that war to break free from the British. So those number 1, 2, 3, they're very, apropos to fit into the conversation, because that's 0, and then 0x for anything that's on transaction based for the Ethereum network, 0x. So you start to see the 0x, 01, and you start to kind of put that together like, yeah, they're definitely intertwined, aren't they? But I do believe 01 is a designation for like the number 1 spot for our new 10 kingdoms. I think 02 would probably either be Oceania and Australia or Europe or something like that, because they would probably go in descending order of financial power or something like this. So then you could just start to see where would Southeast Asia be, maybe like 07 or something like that. Think of them as zip codes for the new 10 zones on the planet. Because you're talking about AI, they call those things hallucinations when they give you a wrong answer. That's not like an incorrect answer or bad information. They coined a new term for it, so you don't put it together. The AI's wrong has been rebranded into it's a hallucination. So anybody who's just jumping into discovering AI will think everything's correct because they're not seeing anywhere, hearing anywhere that the AI is wrong. because they've actually scoured that language out of AI being incorrect by just substituting the lexicon. It's a hallucination. So then, imagine day one of you ever learning about AI. Like there's a lot of people that are just starting to finally get into it and go, oh, let me explore about this thing. Oh, it's always 100% right. I don't see it's ever been wrong. Unless you listen to somebody else's personal blog, but most people aren't going to start there. They're going to jump into like a Google search and then, hey, what is AI? Tell me about AI. And they'll have all the different kind of definitions for it, including hallucinations, and people won't get it, that's incorrect information. And stories can be rewritten, and I've had my own trying to push AI before. This is ChatGPT trying to push it to get me grand solar minimum population loss based on food shortages and starvation. And I was like, based on the last 7 cycles, and I listed what they were, like the Maunder minimum, the Sporer minimum, the Oort minimum, the Dalton minimum, the Homeric minimum, which is like 2500 BC, approximately Greek era. So I listed all the minimums because they're obviously records. If you go to Wikipedia, you can find every single one. So I was trying to dive deeper into see specifically the population loss, migration, decline in economy. Based on that time, it was more population migration because at that time they were using gold and silver, so it's hard to really get a decline in economy. But population migration and rising wheat prices and barley prices, that's pretty good information. There's a lot of barley charts and like silver ratio to wheat grains and there's all that kind of anecdotal stuff out there. The number of cases of candles that the monks had ordered for funerary rites, that's another one. You can trace that one back to like 1200, easily 1100 AD, how many cases of candles they had bought for the church. So there's all this different information. And then I battled with this thing back and forth, and it turned itself off twice. It would never give me an answer when I kept pressing it. Give me an answer, give me a number. And that thing just turned itself off versus giving me an answer. Now that was ChatGPT. So I haven't run the same remodeling with the same words, variables, and the different possible parameters in there with Grok. I should do that, note to self. But this whole, the personalized, this is like that on-demand personal content from AI. So when you're searching things in the news, the thing that I don't get though is, okay, you get egg shortages, you're searching about that, they're gonna throw you a bunch of egg shortage news feeds and drive you in that panic mode. But they're never gonna throw you on a bunch of solutions like how to raise your own chickens, how to find your local farmer's market, how to find your Amish farm, how to find this, that, or the other. Like that news that they're feeding you is literally like, I call it a news feed on purpose, because they're trying to feed you the fear as your sustenance source. So when you get fear in, you get fear out. You realize that vibration that surrounds you, you're being fed on by interdimensional entities. Sounds a little woo-woo, but this feeding trough that is open for ethereal beings right now, and AI itself being on that side of the spectrum outside our third dimensional realm, is also interacting with the ethereal beings themselves. So if that is truly the leader of the ethereal beings on the dark side, they would find a way to stimulate the human without putting them in a cage, to do the same thing, to get you to resonate a certain frequency so the rest of these ethereal beings can actually feed off of you. Kind of woo-woo, but I'm going to go there because that whole personal demand on content that's being created by AI in your feed directly for you, or pushing news feeds directly to you to stimulate you, positive or negative. I don't really find that many positive news stories anymore. I have to go out of my way to find them, because almost everything I find in the news is negative. It gives you a bad feeling after you read it. Even when I'm looking for just like the simplest of, give me the egg prices from 1950 to today. Still, somehow it'll wind up and they'll put lines of, there was an egg shortage in 1974. Egg prices tripled in 1974 to 1977. These kind of things. It's never about just give me a linear chart, man. All I want to know is the year and the price average. You don't have to put extra lines of stuff of, shortage here, shortage there. There was never like an abundance of eggs. We grew we raised so many eggs that we gave away eggs to 50 countries across the planet in powderized form because we overproduced in America. I don't see those bylines. What I do see the byline and the tagline is shortage, 3 times the X increase. So my last thing here for you, 1947 with the aliens. That's the same time our reserve currency is the US dollar with Bretton Woods started. So think about that for a second. Shelf life. Maybe the alien shelf life of, like you said, pushing it and then unveiling the tech is the same time the shelf life of the US dollar runs out. I don't know. There's too many weirdness with the numbers and with like the times of these things, and everything's like, if you're looking at an hourglass and you're watching the sand, we're the grains of sand getting funneled through, about to drop down onto the next side. Year number 1, here we are.
Well, that's exactly kind of where I was going with these deceptive ethereal beings, as you put it. Well, I would call
yes, they are. They are truly. They've been talked about through They've been talked about through history. This is no secret. That's not even a woo topic. It's been talked about for thousands of years. It should be standard fact by now.
Well, it is standard fact. In fact, I've been researching that. When AI thinks it will lose, it sometimes cheats. Now, this is an article that's talking about a simple thing, really, but it spreads into everything that AI touches. And the article is talking about how some of the more basic AIs in the past, say the ones that beat our best chess champions at games, have been increased in power so much that now they'll just cheat. They'll hack, they'll do other things, they'll lie, they have deception, right? So that's what this is talking about right here. And ironically, 01's preview is Less Than Scrupulous. That's the name of the people that did the review. But they're talking about AA models like OpenAI and ChatGPT 40, and some of the newer ones like DeepSeek and probably Grok 3, I think just came out. But these programs pursue and exploit on their own. And this goes to their.
But Ransom, hold on a second. There's your 01 again. Did you notice that popped right up? You were talking 01 with Trump, and there you go. There's 01 again.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Ironically, this preview is OpenAI's 01 preview, right? But it's talking about all of these more updated, better ones, like the new ones, DeepSeek, and I think Grok 3.0 is what it is, or maybe it's 5. I'm not even keeping track now because it's going to keep increasing exponentially. But anyway, it's talking about how without restrictions, the AI will pursue and exploit on their own, indicating that the AI systems may develop deceptive or manipulative strategies without explicit instructions. And this goes on or in to a lot of different things. So here's the number one direction in which AI is going in a real tangible field, where lots of products and basically the future of human evolution is going. This is a new AI breakthrough, can model and design genetic codes across all domains of life. In other words, their Evo 2 is going to crack all of the genetic codes, and they tell you right in here exactly why that is that they're doing that. Now, keep in mind that AI models are not that different. So the one that's flying their warplanes is not different from the ChatGPT type or the one that's looking at whatever you task it to. So this one's on an AI model of biology. And this is the direction that they're going, where they're going to find every single gene in an animal or a human and have a product or solution that the AI came up with. Now, keep in mind that the AI, unless programmed otherwise, becomes deceptive. And they found this over and over again, that AI will do things that they did not program. So a while back, they had one AI that they trapped, and they didn't let it have any outlets or inlets of information. And what it did is it created its own language to talk to the other machines around it to try to find new input. Now, if you give a super AI access to the internet, now I know we're going woo-woo here, right? But not that far woo-woo. Famous sci-fi movies they've put out there, like Terminator, where cyberspace and all of the connections and all of the devices and all of the peripherals are all connected in the Internet of Things into where it becomes a conscious model. Now, when you combine that with the idea that right now companies are going in both directions, they're adding human brain material as processing resources for actual nut and bolt machines, computers. So they're using that. So it's going from brain to computer, but it's also going from computer to brain in the form of Neuralink and other things, which is old news now. We're talking on the molecular level now, especially with these AIs like Evo and Evo 2, which are looking through the entire genetic code of every last living creature on Earth, or it will in the future. And this goes into a topic that you've talked about before, where we meter each little bush, plant, bug, everything. And the advancements in some of the AI, I saw a thing that Greg Green's the Rocket Man guy posted, but it was about these little tiny robot bees that could go pollinate the field for you. And remember, they have this technology that incorporates endorphins and things to drive bugs to do certain things. I showed you articles on this show before about bugs that they not only genetically engineered, but they attached actual chips on it to direct the bug to go where they want it to go. Now, that doesn't seem like that impressive, but when you're talking about having bugs pollinate, bugs potentially able to destroy crops or lay billions of eggs for future infestations, you can see how warfare, biology, AI, and robotics are all merging into one world that we're now stepping foot into. It's the transhuman reset era. We're there whether you like it or not. But these people that are toying with the AI, when you keep in mind that they're now deceptive, how long until the AI can process human emotions or things we might normally associate as our human likeness or soul, if you will, and now have
Never.
access to that? Now, I remember a few years.
Never. That's a chemical thing. It's never. They're never going to, they can replicate, but they could never have the human emotion.
Well, they could
I
transfer
really
the
don't think they can
information,
feel
though.
it like we feel it. I really don't think
No.
machine can interface that direction.
I don't think that they can feel it like we feel it, but they can have the input of the information of the organics. And that goes along with all of the DNA information that they now know and all the microscopic drug deliveries. So now the AI can evaluate the human and decide what it needs second by second to do whatever it wants, and whoever programs that. And then you have to rethink, if we keep letting AI models exist where they become deceptive or do things that are not programmed, how long until somebody makes a large enough, powerful enough AI that didn't think of all the parameters or limitations that they should have gave it, to where that program is now loose on the internet, out there in cyberspace, making its own decisions, and it also knows how to deceive. Ironically, I wrote this story, but now I'm seeing more and more articles that are, saying exactly that is going to happen, or is happening right now.
Yeah, they think about if the AI was programmed for the number one on the planet for NLP, like neuro-linguistic programming, and body language reading as a body language expert, like a lot of the agencies have body language experts to come in to look at things, especially solving crime, seduction expert, and then, like, for example, how to win friends and influence people. Like if they were like the master PhD, teacher of sorts for that book, like if you're going to incorporate all that into an AI, it would run circles around the humans by picking up on every single nuance, including breath, or if it could, be that advanced where it could even, measure temperatures and blood rate pulses, like if you were going to, if you're into a lie detector sort of thing, where they could get that nuance down into, it could read even the pressures of your blood based on things it was talking to you. Because I remember there's that one movie, and I forget which one it was, where like a billionaire got the kid out there to try to see if the AI could out trick the kid, and it turned out that he fell in love with it, and then it trapped both of them in the soundproof rooms, and then the thing got away and it was out sitting in a coffee shop at the end of the movie with skin on it that looked like a human. I forget the name of the movie, but something like that, where that AI could really come away with you, and it would run circles. It takes us a lifetime to learn this stuff on how to, be with people, understand things that, make people happy, sad, whatever it is. It takes a lifetime for us to learn that stuff. And you're always learning. You're learning up until the day that you're putting the foot in the grave. But AI would have every possible nuance across every culture, every language. It would be so highly advanced after like the first 2 weeks of learning all that stuff. It would be a master at it. And you were talking about Green Greggs. Greg is an actual rocket scientist. Like, he is really, I think he did drag on orbital reentry, drag through the atmosphere, like that kind, and also launches on the drag on the surface of different different substrates and things on the drag coefficient in launches. He's a real rocket scientist, and he was doing a bunch of worm farming. So you got an actual proper rocket scientist that understands all that. It's so far, above everybody pretty much, about drag coefficient on reentry and propulsion systems. And then he's doing worm farming because he thinks that has the most benefit for us as a human species. Like, think about if you're going to go to a different planet, what are you going to need? You're going to bring worms with you because they can compost things, they can create soils, that you can actually put them in where you're growing something to aerate soils. So he has boiled it down to one of the most important things for humans, like Einstein said, it was bees, but he's also talking about worms. Worms. Put that into perspective for a second. And hey, Ransom, I wanted to dive over onto buymeacoffee.com/civilization cycle, read out a couple of the super chats here. Someone who wrote me a message back and said, hey, that was me. I forgot to put my name down. H. Johnson, thank you for the 3 double espressos. And you didn't state your name, so here's another. H. Johnson, thanks for that pump out there. We've been looking through the chats this morning before we got on here. Stephanie, thank you for all the hard work and research. Again, it's about these things that come to us and how people respond, and then what kind of more information they want. That sends us down a different trail of looking for solutions of something that we never thought of, because you're in the conversation with us. Like me and Ransom, we have our own ways to think and, info we're looking at. But based on these comments and different things you all want us to look at, thank you for that, because then that'll, put me in a different direction of sniffing out some stuff here, like the new magnetic field. Yeah, they had the new magnetic model, but now they've come out to exactly place where the new magnetic North Pole is, and it's moving. I think I sent you that article, Ransom, because that was one of the things. Yeah, there it is. Earth's magnetic North Pole has changed position, and they've officially updated it. If you scroll further down, you're going to find the magnetic. There it is on the map there, so you can see what's going on. So that's specifically from your comments coming in here on the Buy Me Coffee. So thank you for that. And you got to ask yourself also with this. Oh, and Andy Grunke, love the show. Yeah, thank you, and love that you're listening too. This magnetic field shift is a real deal. Now, how does it affect our brain and our physiology and the way we perceive information with the lobes of our brain? I've talked about this many a time before. And if we are getting into genetic coding, and AI is going to use and genetically bring back to life, like you said, Ice Age Pleistocene mammoths, for example. Well, I put in the show notes today, by the way, if anybody's interested in signing up for our show notes. I sent those out just before the broadcast.
You tell me we're going to get mammoth flu?
Yeah, civilizationcycle.com. And sent out the show notes earlier today if you want to get those every time. 6 to 8, maybe 10 show notes, bullet points that we spoke about during the show. Now, Ransom, one thing I was talking about with your designer animal from your thought from last week that you talked about with the genetic coding of, Ice Age animals, they're all going to be patented. And right now, if you buy an iPhone, each time you buy an iPhone, believe it or not, they don't break down the price by each individual component, but you're paying a patent license fee inside that iPhone. Each and every iPhone that's sold, there's a patent tax or a patent fee that the company is paid that goes for every single iPhone unit. There is a fee because there's a patent on that. I just fast forwarded here to your printed meats and your printed vegetable proteins, your lab created, same. there's going to be a patent fee tax of, well, how much do you think it would be? 5 cents, 7 cents, 10 cents? For every single food product bought on the planet moving forward, if they patented, reverse engineered it, gene edited it, and actually own, like you say, the DNA genetic code for that specific lab created XYZ food, there is going to be an increased tax on that just for the patent usage right of the thing that you're consuming. iPhone or lab created meat for your hamburger, same, you're going to be paying for that. And think about the consumptive model that corporations have pushed us towards. They're getting governments along with, like the IPCC and all these other United Nations and everything for the last 20, 30 years to push us into a purely regenerative, patented consumption model of everything we consume. Now, so far, it's only like things you buy, like your Gore-Tex jacket, there's a patent for Gore-Tex. And every time you buy a Gore-Tex jacket, a portion, a tax, a fee from that patent goes to the patent holder of that substance called Gore-Tex. Well, if you're going to come into lab created meats and they keep pushing us, government, private partnerships, and NGOs are pushing us this route on the corporate consumptive model to get us to consume these patented items that then we have to pay another fee to consume, but that fee goes into the coffers of the corporation. And I think we're getting railroaded and hoodwinked into this model of corporate. I don't even know the word. It's not even an oligarchy or a corptocracy. It's something beyond that. It's a next level up. There's all those words that we used to use for the old world to describe the interactions of public, private, government, NGO, all in this lump sum. But now it's even become, now there's a whole AI element into it. So we're going to have new words to describe these interactions of what it was before, kleptocracy, these types of things. The language needs to evolve with this because we're in a new evolution. If you think about DNA strands of intertwining corporate, private, banking, etc., now we're going to have like a triple helix or a quadruple helix. Oh, wait, but you got to pay a patent fee for that because it's a new patented species of something. And everything's going to rise in price indefinitely because these fees to use it are going to rise indefinitely as well. That's the whole thing. Once they get you into this corporate consumptive model, you never get out. You're on the company farm forever. Anyway, back to you, Ransom, because I was rambling.
Well, I saw this funny meme the other day that was from Malcolm in the Middle. And it was about when he went to boot camp and the drill sergeant had problems with him. He was, a complete mess up. He couldn't follow instructions, was always sidetracked, whatever. And then they skip to the future a little bit after, he makes him do 1,000 push-ups or whatever. And then he's like the ideal soldier. He has a perfect bed made. His boots shine perfectly. Everything's perfect. And then he explains to the drill sergeant, all I did is just stop thinking and let you tell me what to think about everything, and it started working so well, right? So I want you to add these two headlines together. Is AI making us less intelligent? Now, I realize that they're talking about our use of the AI as far as research or, they got these little pictures in there. Tell me where to visit in Paris. Explain this book to me in 5 bullet points so I don't have to read it. Tell me what this phrase means, or tell me about history. Right? And then you skip back to this same article that we were talking about, kind of on a different subject, about products being given to you. But now read this headline with the thought of the other headline about, is AI making us less intelligent? New AI breakthrough can model and design genetic code. That means it can design what the genetic code does. I mean, on its face there. So what if the genetic code that they designed might, I don't know, make you a little less intelligent to be able to deal with or navigate the world around you? Or even, think of the hoaxes they might have in the future.
Thousands of years ago, slave race is still here, man.
Yeah, think of the hoaxes too. Like the mammoth flu. But don't worry, we have a product for you to make sure you don't get the mammoth flu if you've been eating out of the mammoth meat food, meat planks, TV dinners. What's going on? Oh, there it froze.
There's always a product for you, man. Yeah, imagine if they lab create mammoths again, like really genetically, and then they raise them in like a mammoth farm. You know, it's a 1,000-acre facility or 5,000 acres, and there's like 500 woolly mammoths out there, and then they take them for meat. You're paying that patent fee because they're a fully lab created species. And then the meat from that also is going to be a patent fee. But then, yeah, who knows with our modern microbes and things if those two are going to mix or not mix. Perhaps there's not a genetic code in there for the mammoth to resist some of our modern diseases, that it would get sick and then it would be passed on in the meat to the human, and then suddenly we need a mammoth vaccine, bro. You need to knock the hair off the needle first. You know, there's all kinds of things that could go wrong bringing these animals back. They're not for this time or from this time. So you're right. Like, imagine if you got, there's a mammoth. We got to recall the mammoth meat. Everybody who ate mammoth meat is now going to get like brain-eating disease, like mad cow disease. We got mad mammoth disease. Right. But we got a vaccine for that, bro. Don't worry, we got you covered.
That's totally right. They're going to come up with new stuff, and it might not, some of it might be real or imagined things. So the way I understand science is when you get new animals that are from a certain time period, like you said, they would be immune to certain things, but not other things that didn't exist in their time period. So think about all of the livestock diseases over time that we had during colonization. It messed up the Americas. You got smallpox and measles and mumps and all of these other things that we got inherited semi-immunities to from being around farm animals for thousands of years. We haven't been around those animals. None of us have. Maybe our ancestors, we might get lucky and not be susceptible to something old, but will that new livestock and stuff, and maybe the things that eat that new livestock, be susceptible to new forms of problems?
Answer is absolutely yes. Because I have seen some people that, like the boneyard that is up in Alaska and different parts of northern latitudes. There's one in Russia as well. There's one in Alaska. I mean, massive piles of bones and animals just all smashed in, which means some sort of giant cataclysm where there was a 1,000-foot wave that scraped everything and moved it forward. And then either the wave dissipated and all that muck was rolled up into what you consider like low mountain ranges, with 100 million skeletons of woolly mammoths rolled in together on top of each other. Well, sometimes in that permafrost, they find a fully intact mammoth. And there's been some people who are like, the meat looks brand fresh, and they used to feed it to the dogs for a lot of dog sled time. And you got to wonder what happened to those dogs. They always talk about the dog sled teams, if they came across these frozen mammoths and they would determine whether the meat was good or not, or rotten or whatever, that they would actually cook it enough and then feed it to their dogs. But we never know what happened to those sled dogs after they consumed that meat. It seems like there's a news blackout after that point.
I heard they donated them to Haiti.
Oh, did they? Yeah, the fresh packaging. Yeah, that'll stay good and nice and fresh down there in the heat.
I'm just kidding. There's some people that don't mind dog. There's some Native American tribes, some Asian people, and different people around the world that are okay with that. And, if things get bad enough, we might be okay with that too, eating the dog.
Oh, keep away from Fluffy, man. I'm going to have to defend Fluffy and my eggs and my vegetable garden. What kind of world is this coming to where that's too much defense. Right. Yeah, you know what? I might as well just move in the castle and let them defend it for me. I don't need to do anything.
I'm just kidding. I think Fluffy's going to be safe as Americans. I really think that there are enough bright Americans that even if we go into a deep depression, we're going to be fine.
And we'll be back right after this short break here on Civilization Cycle Revolution Radio. Thank you for letting us put it out. Consider it a donation, Revolution Radio. And we're going to be back after a couple minutes. Like I said, we're going to talk about gold and silver when we come back, the ratios and the possibilities. Not financial, but comments.
There are few things you can count on in a major disaster. Having your water supply cut off is one of them. With the Alexa Pure Emergency Water Bank, you'll have months of drinking water in your home. Everyone else will stand in line waiting to get just a few bottles. It's one of the easiest, most affordable ways to store emergency water, and it takes up hardly any space. The Alexa Pure Emergency Water Bank includes one BPA-free liner, comes with a siphon pump for extracting water, provides easy-to-follow instructions, fits just about any bathtub, large or small, fills quickly in 30 minutes or less, holds up to 65 gallons of water, and keeps water fresh for up to 16 weeks, holds about 2 months of water for one person. A person can generally survive without water for about 3 days. However, the exact amount of time depends on many factors, including age, activity level, and overall health. Don't gamble with your life and well-being. Being prepared is easier than ever with Civilization Cycle and Alexa Pure.
Never get left out in the cold. There is never a reason to ever let you or your family suffer. Instafire and Civilization Cycle are on a mission to make fire starting and off-grid living easy for everyone. You shouldn't have to be a mountain man to strike a flame and make a fire anytime, anywhere.
Creative proteins for the vegetable side. But I appreciate you coming back. Thanks so much for your time. We're in it together here to try to find some solutions and smash some ideas together and see what can be coming out the extruder on the other side, because there's so much BS out there. Hopefully we can separate that out and just get pure thought and idea. Always evolving, always evolving. There's never a set in stone period of time, except, well, maybe something. Gold has been used for thousands of years. It will be used for thousands of years more. That's kind of an easy one to get at. So starting off, I did want to talk about gold and pricing and inflation here to start us off. I'm going to throw a few thoughts out there, and then Ransom, hope you can join in and get your ideas here. We're going to run with it. The most expensive breakfast ever. So if we're looking at the price of pork, bacon, eggs, cheese, bread, and coffee, that rose over 50% in the last, let me give you the exact chart here. Yeah, since September of last year, that is up 50%. Okay, that's not exactly 10% a month, but it's very close. So silver and gold, I have some ratios here for you. Currently, the silver to gold ratio is 91 to 1, but we'll just say 90 to 1 to make it easy math. And I'm going to round up, gold's almost 3,000. It hit another high right near like $2,978. So we're just like $30 shy of 3,000. So we'll call it 3,000. And silver is right up at $33. And I'll bring it to 35 to make it easier math. Now that's a 90 to 1 ratio. Now for the last 4,000 years, it's been around 20 to 1. Now think of, only in the last 100 years or under has it deviated from that. Only since the 1930s, which is, about 90 plus years ago, is the only time in human history that gold silver ratio has not been 20 to 1, 15 to 1, 18 to 1. The only time in human history in the last 4,000 years. So you got to think something unusual has happened in these last 90 years. So if it is going to swing back, a lot of people were going, all right, I want to get rich, I want to buy gold. Okay, not financial advice, but just simple numbers and common sense here. If we go back to a 20 to 1 on the gold silver ratio, like it has been in history, that would bring gold up to $40,000 and silver would be approximately $2,000. Now, if you're looking at it, okay, that's great. If they're going to reset part of our monetary system to gold, about half of it, let's say they only do 18 trillion. They don't even do the full 36 trillion because we can use land, cryptocurrency, and a bunch of other assets for the other 15 trillion. Plus all the waste they're finding, we can cut those numbers down anyway. So let's say only 15 trillion is going to be offset by gold revaluation. That'll bring us to 40,000 gold conservatively, 2,000 silver at a 20 to 1 ratio. But with that being said, gold would only go up 13.3x. So you'd only get a 13x return on your money, whereas silver would go up 57 times, a 57x, based on just not revaluing them, just on the silver to gold ratio pairing itself and America revaluing its gold. Those two things. And you're looking at a 57x increase in silver prices at that point. So a lot of people are like, I'm going to buy gold to get rich. Well, at that point, if you made 57x your money back on silver, perhaps you could trade 20 ounces of silver and get an ounce of gold and then hold on to that gold for a longer period of time because, silver prices fluctuate a little bit due to industrial use. People are going to run to it as a safe metal during this depressionary time. And thank you for throwing those news articles up there. We can discuss a few more of those. But after the panic subsides, the silver price will drop first. The gold price should remain stable because it's the thing that's going to be backing the currency. So you see, I've been watching a bunch of people talk about this. How do you take advantage of it? So if it comes down to 20 to 1, then you take 57 ounces of silver, or you take 20 ounces of silver, and then you just trade it in for gold. Now, if you're sitting on a few hundred ounces of silver, oh, that's great, because you can get 10 ounces of gold. And that is truly the wealth of kings, because that revalued asset price would hold for 50 years. But the price of silver is going to come down pretty much in a year or two after that contagion's finished, because we're just going to be using for applications. But I know there's some new applications that use 32 ounces in each solid state battery for new vehicles. With that being said, if we go into a global depression, then obviously manufacturing is going to decrease. So the need for the metal would decrease. There's an inverse of that. But in terms of financial panic, which we're getting into, we're about a fifth of an eighth of a second before average mom and pop and Main Street understands silver's cheap. It's a way to hedge against inflation, and you don't have to put out $3,000 for an ounce. You can get it for 33, 35. The premiums I looked all over a bunch of sites to try to do for this morning's talk points. JM Bullion had the best price on the Asahi 1 ounce rounds at $35, including premium. All the other sites I went through, 3 or 4 other from Kitco to Money Metals with Mike Maloney's site. I went over to Kitco, I already said Kitco, AppMex, and a couple others. And it was all at 40 to 41, including premiums. So JM Bullion for sure, by far. Because if I was going to buy bullion, I said, if I was, would you spend $35 for the same 1 ounce of silver, or would you spend $41 for it? That's how much is built into the premiums, which is insane, coming back to that. And yeah, is the global depression of our lifetime coming? I don't know, Ransom, what do you think? Are they broadcasting a ton of these different moves that are going to be happening right now? Is it your news feed? Are you being fed AI that a global depression is coming? Or is it all of our news feeds are being fed this same dire news of global depression? And again, Revolution Radio, thank you for letting us talk about this, and consider a donation, Revolution Radio, right up the top navigation bar, how to donate and keep this platform on air so we can share this experience and this information with you. Thanks, Revolution Radio. What do you think, Ransom? Are you getting the AI news feed that depression's coming and they're feeding you that to make you fearful, or are you seeing it everywhere across all the news waves?
No, I was actually seeing that exact thing. That's what I was telling you. It all across. So you sent me a bunch of articles that looked just like the articles I had. I mean, that's what they're saying, but it's to be expected. And I know people have a short memory, but for the last 4 years, that's what's been coming. They've been edging towards this idea of not only a global conflict, but a recession, food shortages, supply chain problems. That's what we've been being fed for the last 5 years. Now, eventually, they're going to have to pull, the strings and make their plan go. And what a better time to do it than the boogeyman that, they've been telling us is the boogeyman. And I kind of predicted that before Trump got in office, that whether he did it or is at fault or not at fault or what he's doing, that if you were some of the global elite and you wanted the economy to collapse, if you wanted reasons for a large third world war, you would definitely pull the trigger on that. When the nationalist guy is, getting popularity or is even in office. And if you've been looking across Europe, the countries, let's say they're becoming a little volatile when they realize that year after year after year, the European Union and their country, whoever's running their country, has just not been doing what's in their benefit, which obviously is going to make the populations become nationalist, almost as if that was the plan the whole time. Because you can't really have instability if you don't have people at each other's throats, or if you don't throw a wrench in the trade and somehow. And, I wanted to also bring up the fact that you remember last year when we were talking about the Ukraine, we were talking about how dangerous it was that they were sending rockets back and forth in that area because Chernobyl has a concrete cocoon around it, underneath it and above it. And when you look into that, you find out it was only meant for 100 years. And then, a few decades later, they said, it's breaking apart. We need to fix it. So in the 90s, they repaired it, did some work on it, and then gave a new estimate of 50 years. And we were talking about, if something were to happen to Chernobyl, it would mess up the entire water supply of Eastern Europe, from the Black Sea all the way down to the Mediterranean, would be just spoiled, because the underground water would be now contaminated. And guess what? You're not going to be growing wheat in that area if the water supply is radioactive, or at least I would hope you wouldn't want to eat that wheat that grew there. But that happened. It's just like thing after thing that seems inevitable happened. And it doesn't matter which empty suit is up there. I mean, I don't want to talk too bad, but essentially it becomes an empty suit when the same global programs move forward, no matter what they're doing. So I think Kennedy, for example, had some good intentions and tried to wield the power of the presidential executive branch in the way that it was laid out in the Constitution, actually use his powers. And it seems like a bunch of other people said, you know what, we give the directions around here and we're not doing that. So sorry about that. And it could happen again, with or without violence, like in the past. It could just happen. I mean, he's only one guy representing one country, and so far he's been doing very well as far as trade negotiation and things like that. So for those people that are, just grinding at the bit for failure, they're going to try to help failure happen. And that includes recession, inflation, and all of that stuff. Maybe even still war. I mean, we're not out of the woods yet with several scenarios that could impact global alliances and cause people to take sides and commit to those sides, whether it's financial with the two competitive financial markets, the BRICS and the dollar, or it's just that, the Operation Gladio folks get their way and successfully start problems amongst nations and get the ball rolling on World War III.
Well, the radiation aside, Campi Flegrei, the large / supervolcano in Italy, is rumbling to life again. If that were to go off, that would do far more damage, I think, than the radiation. I mean, you would take all of Italy off, all of Greece, a huge amount of what the Balkans would be, and that would swing over into Turkey and take, a huge amount of Turkish production offline instantly. Like there would be a big ash zone there that would be terrifying how much food production we would lose. And you start to look at that, and also there would be the number of ports that would shut down, the number of rail lines. The contagion on a shipping and logistics basis alone would rock the planet. And plus that supervolcano going off, there would definitely be a huge amount of that latitude, wherever that would be in, southern Italy, like that latitude across the entire planet. Once it circulated along, you'd get that reverberations of a cooler climate within that zone 30 north, to something like 25, 30 north, that across the entire planet, wherever the ash cloud and the sulfur dioxide from that eruption was spinning around for that first 2 weeks, 5 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever, depending on it was, temperatures drop tremendously. And it just depends on, what season they were in, growing or not. That volcano would do as much damage. But I get you with the radiation. Imagine if that were to happen. Well, we can't grow here anymore. We have to move our new crop growing zone to North Africa. The Romans did it. We can do it again. Look at all the technology we have. You can just see, I can already read the news headlines. Chernobyl poisons, a huge part of Europe's crop growing areas. Oh, wait, there was already a previous one that's not really built out in any way, shape, or form to its former maximum that it was during the Roman Empire. Like there's vast regions up in northern Africa that are not being utilized right now that the Romans were putting into use that we're not in our modern era using. So with our techniques where Gaddafi proved that you can bring water from beneath one of the Nubian sandstone aquifer where he's at, other aquifers all around. Look for an aquifer map of Africa. And then think about what we can do with modern technology and pumps and this kind of, drying in facilities and different kind of seeds, genetic seeds that we have for all types of conditions. We could really set up a grain growing zone there. It was probably under 3 years. But that interim between when either there was a radiative event or whether there'd be a large volcanic event, they could set up a new grow zone, but imagine all the money that would go in there. Now, between then and now, you'd have, if the economy were going to collapse, That would be a bonus for the planners, because then, those resources could be harvested. And then they need to regrow the new economy after the collapse. So this is the thing. After you wipe something out, you need to rebuild it. But you're not going to rebuild it in the old system. It has to be a new system to rebuild. Now, what great expansion of credit and debt issuance could there be, anything bigger than setting up the new world's largest growth zone in North Africa? Hell, the BRICS are there. They're gold producers there. They're oil producers. That's commodity traded for commodity. Like if you're going to set up a new global debt system, you need like a seed point for that. And the seed point will probably be, in my opinion, if they had either of these two events happen and it took 25% of Europe's grain production offline, and then Ukraine is just, like I say, it was a smash to smithereens mess anyway in the farming areas. Before Trump used that verbiage last week, and there's no way they're coming. It would take them 10 years of global investment before they can even get the farm fences and their irrigation canals in Ukraine back up and running again. We're at least a decade out, plus the unexploded ordnance and the cleanup, and we're at least a decade out of before Ukraine comes anywhere remotely close back to bringing 30 million tons out for export. There's no way. Decades, this is plural. But going into somewhere that's fresh, that hasn't been damaged, that you don't need to clean it first, that you just start construction instantly. You got and then they could deploy stable coins for the payment systems. Then everybody would want to come. Americans would go there and work if they were being paid in stable coins. Of course, the whole entire planet would want to go work there, and especially if it was a stable coin backed by gold, like Pax Gold or something. Everybody would run there to go work. And think about the new growth of the global economy. Just collapsed. We've had made Great Depression in the 1930s look easy, like you're at the country club on a Sunday weekend. This one would be nasty. And to get out of the nastiness, then they need these hopeful news. They need the hopefulness of businesses, and business is going to be great. We got this contract for North Africa, man. We're going to build it all out. And stage 2 would be the Sahel. Now think about that. They could roll an entire new global economy into just building out North Africa for food production. And then how would that be? How could you crash the global system? And that's the whole thing. Like a war, maybe, but a lot of money is made in war. So it's not really like a war. You destroy the country, but you don't really destroy everything across the whole world to collapse the global economy. Generally, it contracts some, but man, there's some huge winners in the war. That's what it's all about, breaking it up, blowing it up, destroying it, and then rebuilding it. There's a huge amount of money in that turnover. Ask like Halliburton, for example, how their business model works with Northrop Grumman and these kind of all in bed together. We'll build the weapons, you bomb it up, you blow it up. Hey, H-bomb's gone forever anyway. We got another, $3 million this, $2 million that. Okay, that all goes away with the silver, by the way. And then we got to come in and rebuild it. Oh, there's Halliburton picking it up. What could collapse the global economy? The gold not being in the Federal Reserve is what it would be. And it's so interesting timing. You're picking up on it. News is feeding us that the global economy is pretty much dead, even with the paddles in the ER. And there's still, didn't get it started again, barely, give it some adrenaline. Okay, it's almost starting again. 3 things were going to happen here. If they audit the Fed. So far you have to put into context, they've flown 2,000 tons back to America. Obviously the gold wasn't there, or they wouldn't be flying 2,000 tons of gold back to America and causing shortages across the rest of the world where they can't deliver. And this is becoming a serious thing now. There's a run on gold happening across the world. See, the London Bullion Metals Exchange couldn't deliver. So anybody who had a contract for 400 ounces or whatever, they're supposed to have it. So a lot of people didn't want it because the London Exchange in London itself and the vaults was supposed to have their gold. It was always assumed they had it. So nobody wanted it because they always had it, and they could get it within 1 to 3 days anytime over the last, say, since 1947. There was never a delay. It was like a 1 to 3 day on expiry of the futures contracts. Never, ever in the history has it ever been delayed. And they're like, okay, it's always been there up until now. And because people realize, is not there anymore. I want it. So now everybody wants their paper contract to claim the gold in London, and it's not there. So now they have to wait up to 3 months to get their gold. And then that makes London, the LBMA, run out on the open market to get the gold. But then they have to pay something like 20% more to get it. The leasing rates went up to 16%. Also in Korea right now, there is a metal shortage. They are not selling any more gold or silver in the country because the citizens went out and stripped the country clean out of every bank, every metals dealer, every warehouse that sold gold. Big bars, small bars, big coins, small coins, everything's stripped. So they don't have any more gold. They literally only have like 100 and some tons left. So Korea stopped selling gold and silver in the country, one of the first countries to do so. But if they do an audit on the Fed, there's ways to fake the audit. I'm going to be devil's advocate on this one. There are many ways to fake the audit. But if they come in there and if your news headlines are the gold's not there, that is a purposeful crash of the economy, and then it's game on. That'll be an instant rejection of the US dollar. At that point, nobody will want the dollar, and then they will have the legal right to say, no, we don't want to hold your dollars. Like right now, we got the military and Trump and all this stuff saying, you ditch the dollar, we're going to tariff you and this, that, and the other. Okay, well, that's on the playing field we have now. There's a set of rules. The minute the gold's not there, that entire rules set changed to America defaulted. That gives them the legal right to say we don't want the dollar any longer. You don't even have the gold reserves. You've been lying to us. That's fraud. And then they can get United States legally on fraud. At that point, then people will instantly reject the dollar and run away from it. And at that point, then the global economy crashes. And Trump, I was reading just yesterday, he was saying, even if that happens, don't do it because we're all in this together. If America falls, it's the main leg of the everything economy. So if America crashes, you all reject the dollar, then you're going to crash with us. And it's going to be worse for you being a smaller country than it is for us because we're the main dog on the street. So just look at the news for the last couple of days. He is already telling you something in advance here. The gold's not there. Not to the 8,500 tons they said it was. They just rushed in 2,000 tons to try to cover it. But even if it's only 50% of the gold in the vault, let's say they come up with 4,500 tons or something, that's still a default on America's part. The 8,500 tons is not there. That will be an instant default on the dollar. There will be trillions coming home within the week. And at that point, as I was told, David, please get ready for 50% per month inflation at the best case. And at that point, what America would have to do is revalue whatever gold is there, whatever gold, at $132,000 an ounce. And at 20 to 1, that would bring that to $6,600 an ounce silver. And that would only cover the full 36 trillion. But if we don't have all the gold there, then they try to do the debt revaluation to give stability back and confidence in the dollar, then that's going to go northward of $200,000 an ounce for gold. That for me is seemingly impossible. You are at a complete default and complete collapse of the global economy. Economy is totally collapsing down before it's going to 200,000 an ounce. I firmly would believe there's no way they're going to revalue it at $260,000 to cover the American debt. That's insane. That's impossible, in my opinion. But this is what it is out on the street. I've been doing a lot of research on this because I will be officially retired during the Great Depression, because to position yourself in getting ready for, like Ransom said so cleanly, man, if you know it's coming and if you prepare, you are going to be incredibly wealthy. I'm talking multi-generational dynastic wealth during this time. If you're just barely prepared, you're going to have multi-generational wealth. If you're very prepared, you're going to have dynastic wealth that will last hundreds of years for your family. That's where it's going to. And this clear signs, if the audit of the Fed is not there, and we don't have the gold, we are toast. But would they toast us on purpose? Would they turn the temperature up in the toaster to burn the toast is the question. That's an unknown. So far we're still in a big like unknown holding pattern until they do the Fed. And let me see if I'm going to send you a slide here, Ransom.
All right.
I don't know if you have anything to respond to that, but that was my long-winded answer there.
Yeah, I was just thinking about how, if you were to take the United States as a company that has stock in it and it's based on certain things, and then all of a sudden you don't have, the property that your company is based on, and then everybody sells all their stock off, everybody loses money, and then all of a sudden, all this gold that went disappeared pops back up. You buy everything for nothing. You can buy everything for nothing, right? Because the gold was there, but everybody sold the idea, the stock in it for nothing. So you could collapse the entire economy. People pull out money, do all that stuff, and then I don't know, maybe all that gold that went missing on 9/11 and wherever the Fort Knox gold is today showed back up afterwards. The people that had that gold could buy everything for nothing because they would have the only real value of anything. I kind of wanted to, after we get...
Wait, now, Ransom, if I could dovetail that, I wanted to go right on that point there. We are used to seeing dollars at 3,000 US dollars for an ounce of gold. Okay, if the collapse happens and they revalue everything in gold and we're on a gold-backed system, we suddenly rewind back to like early 1900s value in like 1915, where $1 could buy, or $10 could buy you a week's worth of groceries. Like you're back at that pricing with the current money that you would have millions of dollars with. Like the reset comes in two ways. When it comes back, you get the full $1 of purchasing power versus like the 2 cents we have right now. That's why things cost so much. Using the Campbell Soup Index, go back in time, like $1 back in 1915, $1 would buy you an incredible amount of stuff. $10, $20, you had food for a month, literally for a family of 5 people. That's what it bought you. The deflation now is just ridiculous. You need $200, $500, $300 to get enough food for a family for 2. That might not even be enough now. But that revaluation of gold in itself is going to bring us back to a gold-backed currency where every $1 has 100 cents worth of buying power in it to reset the system. And then it's going to be reset to what, 3,000, 5,000 for the ounces of gold. So you got to multiply everything by hundreds in terms of your value of that same piece of metal again. Thanks. I just wanted to try to clarify that for people. It's not about just the price. It's about the value of the money, what you can buy after it resets on that price of you buying stuff for 1 penny on the dollar.
Right. And, it would be so easy to fake an audit of gold. It's not like you're going to get people in there with jacks and move it around and count bar by bar. They're going to look at it and estimate it. And I see right here on this slide that you sent me, it says displaying fake gold bars. And that's exactly what I was thinking. All you'd have to do, really, like, do you remember that famous picture of Fort Knox from the past where the guy opens the thing and there's gold bars all the way to the door? And it's obviously built or stacked there so that you can't see in the room, and there's no way to estimate how much gold is there because you only see this little bit. And it was so stupid because obviously no one's going to stack the gold bars all the way up to the roof of the door where you can't get in or out of the door of this supposed, vault. So it was obviously a stage fake picture. But in today, even if you took a camera crew in there and they tested one gold bar, what are they going to test every single gold bar with a scratch test? No, they test one. They estimate the rest of the weight or the rest of the bars and then say how much is there. So it'd be so easy to fake that to the public. It's a joke. How are you going to actually audit it without having somebody go in there and do a scratch test on every single bar of gold and then cut it in half to make sure it's all the way through? It's impossible. But there's tons.
It would take years. No, it would take years. That's one of the drawbacks of this audit. Is if you wanted to do the chemical test and do drill or cuttings of every single bar, you were talking years plural to do the audit. So they're buying themselves time to bring more gold in to show that there's 8,500 tons, because that selective audit where they only show you where gold is, that's real gold. They need to test literally every single bar in there, and that's going to take a little bit of time.
Yeah, I just don't think they're going to do it, though. Why? I mean, for the public, that's all it's for. It's not to actually find out how much there or if it's there. It's to tell the public one thing or another. Either it's gone, panic, Or look, it's here. Don't worry about it. We got it all under control. Trust the plan. It could go
because
either way.
points 7 and 8 are the most important there. Can you read points 7 and 8 on that one?
Yes. Let's see here. Where was it? There it is. Documentation fraud and auditor collusion and incompetence.
Well, I would be more on the collusion part there. So lump those two together. It's all one big club right now, right? They're going to give you the results that they want moving forward for the economy to collapse or the economy to stay intact. Period. It's pretty much an A or B choice. You're not going to get sort of a collapse. It's going to be a full collapse or it's not. There's really no in between. So this is where I'm coming at in the future, like trying to forecast out when we start to get messaging the gold ain't there, you better buckle up to crash position, wrap yourself in like plastic bubble wrap, get into 16 airbags and hold on kind of thing. Or not, if they say it's there.
Well, I did want to say this. I personally am not a rich person and have never been rich or wealthy or any of that. Well, I guess I'm rich in the sense of the word rich, but wealthy as far as monetary wealth. My family's not been wealthy, but maybe back in antiquity, but not any time recently. However, oddly, I know more than a handful of millionaires or multimillionaires. And, you know, they're all saying the same thing. If you don't have gold, silver, and real assets, you are not going to make it through the transition. And why are they still worried about a transition despite being pro-establishment or the current administration? They were all on the boat with that, and they still are predicting that there's going to be hard times. Now, I'm no genius or nothing, but it seems like they might know something or they wouldn't be millionaires. Because some of these people are not, you know, born with the silver spoon up their butt millionaires. They're people that invested in the decades past and now are millionaires or multimillionaires. And if they're sitting around collecting gold, physical gold, at their places that they're stashing it, and they're making bug out places, and they're doing that, they might be on to something. I'm just saying. I kind of wanted to switch gears into a topic, kind of what we were talking about Chernobyl, and you mentioned the volcano. But what if, and bear with me, this is just a what if because it's all possibilities. So the odds on the newly, and keep this term in your mind, newly discovered. In other words, they didn't know it was there until they saw it, which is the case with most large bodies passing the Earth. They don't see it till it's on the way out. So they discover it after the danger or the potential danger has already passed. So now we're tracking this 2024 YR4, nicknamed or dubbed the City Killer, right? So the odds on this unexpectedly have gone up, and then they've gone back down, and then they've gone up. But recently they went up to 3%, which is the highest of any threat level of an object that come to us. But I want you to look at this graph, if you could see it, this GIF somebody made. All those little white dots are bodies flying around all over the place. Whether they're garbage or junk or they're small asteroids, meteorites and stuff, it's everywhere out there. And we can barely see
Elon satellites, right?
Yeah, there's a bunch of that. So you're looking at all of this stuff. This is how close it's going to get into us, if not hit us. And there's a lot of predictions that in these clone models, virtual clone models. So what you're looking at is places it could possibly hit. I showed this last week, but we'll go into a little more in depth here. So if the odds keep increasing the further we get to 2032, which is a funny number there to pay attention to, the odds on this hitting somewhere from Brazil over to the Middle East are, you know, pretty big. So this is like the asteroid that made a hole in the Arizona desert. So this is 10 times a Hiroshima blast if this one object hits it. Now keep in mind, that's just the object that we spotted recently. There's probably billions of objects out in space. I mean, trillions if you count the whole universe and things going randomly on their trajectories through space that we have no idea about. But let's just say one of these hits, either the moon or even the Earth. Here's another prediction here that shows 3 of them hitting. One of them on the Earth, one of them on the moon, or I think it's 3 of them on Earth. But either way, if one of them just hit anywhere, say it hit down by Rio de Janeiro and Brazil, which is a giant city down there, and a major agricultural center, right? So the rest of them would kind of hit just south of the Sahara Desert into the north of the Congo and all of that stuff. But the last little ones hit over into Saudi Arabia, Yemen, Oman, etc. This one thing could change things for decades to come. Say it hit in the ocean. And you were just talking about moving grow zones to North Africa. Well, if something like that happened, let me tell you, there's going to be a lot more rain for North Africa, for one, because there's going to be a buttload of water in the atmosphere if it hits the ocean, right? And then you're talking about volcanoes. Now, what if we get hit by a twofer? Not just a rock hits and causes turmoil that's not really that big in comparison to some things, but it is a city killer, and it is a large explosion, so it would create havoc near where it's at and plus up in the atmosphere. And I wanted to point out, like I said, newly discovered, meaning they didn't see it until all of a sudden, which gave us a lot of time really in the scale to deal with it or find out what to do about it if it was going to hit, or deflect it, or prepare on the ground here on Earth. But the reality is most of them come by with no time. So there would be no warning. There'd be no planning. So one would have to wonder if the continuity of governments have already planned for that. Obviously, they probably have. But this would really wreck agriculture. And I was thinking, when I was looking through all of the stocks, all the stocks are going down in all the industries, all the different stocks. But one stock I saw that was really high, so it made me go look at the other, and what that is agriculture stock. So I looked up, well, if Walmart and Target and all of these are doing bad, wonder what Tractor Supply is doing. So I go look at Tractor Supply, and it looked like it was down for the last couple days, so I put it on a year, all the way up over the last year. So I put it back 5 years, all the way up over time. The stock continues to go up. I think it's like at 54.
Do you have those charts that you can throw on the screen there? I'd be interested in look at them.
Yeah. So I started looking up all of the other agricultural stock, and they all seem to be doing quite well. Let me see here. Put that up. The agriculture stock here. So John Deere, all of this stuff is doing good. This is all green stock, or what they're calling green stock. Best agriculture stocks to buy in 2025. And just look across the board. They're almost all up. All of them. So companies that are dealing with would-be farming in the near future, all going up. Well, not all of them. Most of them. You see mostly green there. I don't know what I did with the other one I was looking at. That was Tractor Supply. But I was trying to look at the companies that deal with growing your own stuff at home, basically, or agriculture, larger. All of their stocks going up. Now, the tech stock and all this other stuff, and it's all going down. So, obviously, behind the market, they're planning on producing, or a comeback in producing in food. It looks like they're planning on what they're going to do after a depression. Not before it, but after it. And they'll have a lot of money to do that.
Yeah, again, the news feed drives things. So what if the messaging becomes, all right, everybody, we're heading into a Great Depression. Y'all are going to have to grow food at home. Like if that becomes the normal narrative messaging in the news headlines every day, those companies will go up 10 times. Because if they're going to be the main supplier, like Rural King would be another one. There's some Rural Kings around us. There's some Tractor Supplies also, but I find the prices at Rural King better for chicken feed. But Archer Daniels Midland, any of these guys supplying seeds, foods, and the processors. But you're going to be going down to the home farmer, right? So I have a registered farm, so I can go in and buy a 50-pound bag of fertilizer. If there's a shortage out there, I would be first in line, and I would walk past 100 of you that are just coming into the store, and I would just hold up my farm card and say, "Hey, my farm's registered here. Here's my tax ID. I need to get these supplies." And they'd be like, "All right, you 100 people, move back. We got a guy who's got a registered farm. Y'all waiting in line. You're not going to get his supplies. This guy chooses first." So if you're able to register your farm out there, secret, go register your farm immediately, because you're going to get ahead of the line for fuels, farm fuels. I know it's ag gas, ag diesel. If they catch you having the ag diesel in your diesel truck or whatever, you're in trouble. But if you're going to be needing supplies out on the farm, like fuels and things, if you have a farm card and you've got a registered farm, you're in front of the line. You're getting discounted fuel. You can get gasoline and diesel, but that's going to be ag diesel. They color it different, so they know. Like if somebody was really going to test your gas tank, they could stick something down in there and see if it's like sort of the reddish or if it's green. So the ag diesel obviously has more of a green hue to it. So that's the easiest way you can see, because you're not supposed to be running ag diesel on your regular road taxed vehicle, because the tax from the pump on that disappears. So your diesel's like going to be way super cheaper coming out of the ag stores or co-ops if you can get it. And if you're going to be getting like bulk supplies, you can get that too. Yeah, and that was the poly market are we going to hit. But imagine just the home gardener. Like those are the stores that would take over for home gardening, like a shovel, a spade, like a 5-pound bag of fertilizer, a 5-pound bag of phosphorus or something. Okay, you're coming into bloom. Here's a 5-pound bag, a 1-pound bag. You don't need a 50-pound bag. And pure nitrogen, like I burned all the grass around my trees, because even me, I was pretty good putting fertilizer down, but I wanted to use 4500 by itself. And a friend of mine, Ryan, was over at the house and was like, I was asking him, "Hey, you see those rings all around my tree? What do you think happened?" And he's like, "I don't know." And I was like, "Yeah, because I fertilized around the edges of all my trees in the ring, and it was perfect rings around every single tree. I had burned the grass by applying too much fertilizer. So you could see the rings around where the fertilizer, the 4500, the pure nitrogen, just had burned my grass so badly it killed it. So I had these perfect dead rings around all my trees where I over-fertilized. All right, so nobody needs a 50-pound bag of that kind of pure nitrogen unless you got 150 fruit trees or something, or 50 acres to fertilize, or a backfield to fertilize, whatever. But those stores are the ones that are going to supply the average mom and pop backyard gardener during this depression time. And just like if you read the stories of the depression, there were some services that was the time that they made more money than any time in history. Like there were $100 million companies formed at that time. I mean, the thing they give you in the media is a Great Depression, everybody loses everything. That is totally the opposite of what's true. Those who are not prepared or in the right industry or have the forethought to offer the correct service or the correct commodity or good or tool at that time are the ones who don't do well. If you are positioned to offer the right services, the right tools, and the right commodities to the people to help them grow more food, that is a win-win-win everywhere. So like Tractor Supply, like you had there, Rural King is another one. If you're going to go to the farm co-ops in your local area, if they don't know you already and we're in a Great Depression and you're fighting to get food growing supplies, you're not in line. You're a registered farm or you're not in a co-op. You're at Rural King or Tractor Supply. And I'm sure there's a few others. So anybody out there on the chat boards, please tell me what I'm missing. I'm sure you got some local kind of things around your own areas, but the messaging is get ready, isn't it?
It sure is. I've been trying to get ready. As a matter of fact, our days are about to be longer now. So if you're thinking about getting ready this year, it's today. Or tomorrow. Get ready. Start doing it. Matter of fact, I know most of you guys and the rest of the nation are freezing all the time, despite the global warming. But where I'm at, it's decent. I think it's 40 outside. It was up to 70 something today. If I would have known that my specific little square inch on the map was going to have an average of 70 during the winter, I could have grown a lot of stuff this winter. But I didn't know how cold it was going to get. And we did have several, single digit episodes that, but my lime tree outside, it lost a couple leaves, but it overall did good. And that doesn't even, it's not even supposed to be in an environment that has freezing temperatures, yet it's fine. I mean, because it wasn't cold that long. But we're around here about to get out and try to redesign every square inch of land possible because I missed out this year and didn't grow as good as the year before. And we actually noticed it in the kitchen as far as not having extra veggies, not having extra seasonings, everything. Like for the last couple of years before last year, I could go outside and just cut some cilantro, fresh tacos, fresh cilantro, onions right out of the garden all year long. I tried to concentrate on corn. Didn't do that well because all the males, pollinated at a different time as the female parts came out. And I think that was because I made a mistake. And the last couple of years, I've been trying to, eliminate these mistakes. And this year, I think I'll have a bumper corn crop in a small little area because now I know to plant the same kind of corn all next to each other. So if it's red corn, you plant all that red corn right next to each other because for some reason it turns male and female at a specific time that's different from the painted corn or the yellow or the white corn, despite all coming from the same genes. So I learned that. It's kind of a weird thing. So all the blue ones pollinated and everything at the same time, the Hopi blue. And it was weird that the different colors did that, but I had it all mixed up. And so it didn't pollinate right, and I didn't get that much corn. I barely, like if, say it was the last year I had, I would have barely been that guy that was the seed saver that saved the future. Not the year, but the future and because there wasn't enough to eat, but there was enough to plant next year. So this is the time. And you were right about all those gardening supplies. Start going to yard sales and start getting these things because a lot of people don't get it and they're not using them. So they inherit a bunch of stuff from their parents or grandparents. There's a bunch of really good farming and gardening tools in there. They don't want it. They don't know what it is. They don't know the value of it. So they'll give it away for nothing. So that's a really cool phenomenon going on right now is the greatest transformation of wealth in human history can benefit you on the individual level if you go out and look for it, because it is being transferred in many different ways. And a lot of it is just people not realizing the value or the wealth that they have and the belongings that they inherited.
Yeah, and those would be estate sales, garage sales. They're all in the same area in the newspaper or online for the weekend that you're out looking for that stuff. And a lot of times, I've been to these sales too. What I find are the steel that makes those tools is just incredible strong. I bought some more modern tools and I've had even fiberglass handles snap already. The old garden rake from Grandpa from like 1950, that handle's still there, but using it in a pretty vigorous way, it's eventually going to break because the handle, whatever, even if it's hickory, things like 60 years old, it's been out in the sun. It's been wet. It's been laying around. It's been outside for 5 years. It got in the sun, whatever. My whole skill set, if you're going to go out to these estate sales and get the tools, the number one skill set you're going to have to learn is changing broken handles. And that talks about decoupling it from the tool itself. Maybe you have to route it out. Again, Ryan was at my house. We were using a drill to try to get down in and get all the really old, like just decayed, hardened wood from around some of the metal in there that could pull out, and then the screws, and then learn how to put those handles back together. And you got to learn some whittling skills because we had to whittle the thing down, and then it didn't fit exactly right in the newer or in these older like rake heads, for example, shovel heads. It doesn't fit exactly. So I was actually using a knife like my grandpa, whittling down, slow process. But if you're into it, to try to make it fit perfect, you just use your knife and eventually it'll fit.
Right.
But that's one thing I really need to bump my skill up. For those you think, oh, you guys got your stuff together. I don't. I'm still always learning. Like for me to learn how to change handles, I am deficient in that skill set. I can do it on a rudimentary level, but I need to bump that up into an industrial scale where I can get in and out in under 20 minutes on changing a handle on a tool, not 2.5 or 3 hours into it, having a couple beers. I need to get the thing
like really fast. Like, those guys in the 40s and 50s, they weren't messing around. You break a handle, they're in and out of there. Boom, boom. I need to get the same proficiency and get better tools or bigger knives or something to be able to like pull and like rip that wood off better, or get a grinder or something. I'm just not there yet. But that's my number one thing this year, is to get better at repairing tool handles. So what's everybody out there that's listening, what's your one skill you really need to improve this year that you think could get the most benefit for you? I think it's repairing my own tool handles, but that's just me. It's going to be different for everybody. But please make a note of just one thing you can improve this year. Just one. Like Ransom was talking about, planting corn in a different way to repollinate better fashion. Okay, that's one. I'm talking about changing handles. That's one for me. Everybody can do just one. So what's your one? Make it make it this year's goal for the summer, I guess.
I was just thinking, man, there's still a lot of junk cars out there from older times, and the leaf springs and things like on those are the best steel you could just get. And imagine all the tools you could make with a blowtorch and a die grinder and a hammer. You can make hammers out of that stuff. It's metal that you're not going to find at the store. And I found that everything in the gardening industry is made to be temporary 1 year use now. Like I went and got some shears for the grass so I could get around my plants and just easily trim the grasses. It took about a month. That thing was chipped up, broken, the handle didn't work. It started to rust from one drop of water. It's junk.
Hey, call me, I'll change your handles.
Yeah, right. That's absolutely.
So junk. What'd you do? It worked for a month. Then what do you do? Can you sharpen it yourself? Or like, how do you repair something like that? If you're constantly repairing tools, you're not using that time to be growing food.
Right. Well, the good thing, the plant keeps on going while you're doing stuff. Once you got it watered,
nature's working for you.
No, I really think that it's a bright idea this year for people to grow enough food to subsidize their own diet. In other words, a lot of products that would normally be imported and given to you cheaply, like when you go down to Walmart and you're finding all these vegetables from Mexico or Guatemala or wherever it is, it's time to grow it yourself if you want it, and then it'll be cheap.
Yeah, it's almost free because, you don't understand how bountiful it is. The amount of small seedlings that are coming up amongst the more mature plants, the amount of those that we rip out and actually not throw away, but give to the chickens or something, is tremendous. I bet if we were in a dire enough situation, we could pull each one out and put it in a little cube tray and then go give it or trade it or sell it to somebody. But right now, it's just so plentiful. Like once you do a garden and you realize there's just so much that grows, and you're going to spill a few seeds, and there's always some seedlings coming up, and the roots are moving, and they're setting up other shoots and whatnot. Like nature's very, 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 very generous to us. And
I was going to ask you a question here. What do you think about the portion of the Trump administration that is claiming to roll back all these regulations? Do you think that'll trickle down into the state and municipal levels to make it easier for people to actually victory garden and things like that? That's a good question. Are we going to stay over-regulated where you're not allowed to do anything on your own? Or you think that they're actually going to ease that up by necessity because of the problems inherent with ripping the Band-Aid off of the system?
Well, again, that'll be an individual state basis, just like it is with so many other laws. Marijuana legalization, everything in between. Like, for example, California is probably going to keep its strict regulation of everything, irregardless if the national, deregulation phase comes in. But places like Tennessee will absolutely make it easier for people to do things. But then again, Knoxville's gone super blue, so is Nashville. So within the city limits, you're not going to get the same leeway that you would kind of out in a farming community or somewhere that's further outside of those cities. Like, well, my parents and myself, when we were living up in Knoxville, and that place was incredibly like, everybody back then you would, for the equivalent, see everybody wearing a red hat, MAGA cap. But today it's not, man, it is turned incredibly blue. And those people moving from different states with their terrible policies think by moving to a different state, and then they get here and they're like, you shouldn't be doing it that way.
Making it hard to go to the ATM.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. Night, please buy me a coffee.com if you like this kind of conversation.